Okay. So, very good evening to our esteemed panelists, faculty, alumni, and students. I'm Rahul Birari on behalf of the Corporate Relations Committee of IIM Kashipur. Wish all the ladies out there a very happy Women's Day and welcome all of you to the International Women's Day Conclave, ADVICA 2023. The theme of the conclave is Women Empowering the Corporate World Today and Tomorrow. So as the theme of International Women's Day 2024 states, the working landscape is changing. The leadership and business world is no longer just a man's game. We would like to take this opportunity to recognize the contributions of women and girls around the world who are leading the change on all the diverse domains in order to make a more sustainable future. This reminds me of an astonishing quote by Hillary Clinton. So she quoted, "Women are the largest untapped reservoir of talent in the world." So in order to understand the essence and importance of women leadership and the challenges they face, we have 5 accomplished industry women leaders with us. They are the stalwarts in their own domain. To begin with, I would like to introduce our first speaker of the day, Ms. Supriya Raman. Ma'am is the Vice President, Data Science, Corporate and Investment Banking at JPMorgan Chase Co. She is one of the top 10 women Indian data scientists in 2021 with 16 plus years of experience. She is proficient in designing and developing statistical and predictive machine learning models for identifying patterns and extracting data insights. She also shares expertise in directing end-to-end software development lifecycle, accomplishing mission-critical projects and delivering user-centric solutions, and using Scrum methodology to write succinct user stories or epics in the Agile framework. Now I request Nimisha to introduce our next panelist.
Sure. Thank you, Rahul. Next is Ms. Divkiran Kathuria. Ms. Divkiran Kathuria is the Global Director, Talent Ability at Seagate Technology. She is an expert in scouting and assessing next generation HCM startups and helping organizations in maximizing their return from investments in HR tech. She has led the strategy, design, and release of an HR product portfolio covering core HR, self-service, talent management, talent acquisition, time and labor, absence, people analytics, and enterprise learning for the second largest HR enterprise application. She also has international exposure across industries and geographics and is experienced in working with multiple HR technologies. The next guest we have with us is Ms. Leena Sahijwani. Ms. Leena Sahijwani is the former Vice President, Group Human Resources at Tata Group. She has over 2 decades of work experience in various leadership roles in organizations such as GE, Tata Group, GlaxoSmithKline, Consumer Healthcare, Aon, Sun Pharmaceuticals, and Accenture. She is a dynamic human resources leader with broad experience in several areas of HR and an eminent blog writer. I would request Gunjan to go ahead and introduce the next panelist.
Thank you, Nimisha. Our next eminent panel member for today is Ms. Sharmila Barathan. Ma'am is the President of Corporate Affairs and Policy, General Electric India. She also serves as board member at GE India Industrial Private Limited. Ms. Barathan is an established thought leader who has championed game-changing policy, market access, and strategic transactional advocacy. Her business portfolio advocacy spans multiple industries, including aviation, power, renewables, healthcare, and many more. The 5th panel member for today is Ms. Ritu Sharma. Ma'am is the Executive Director of International Enterprise Services at Boeing. She has over 18 years of experience in operations and business enablement strategies in startup and country expansion situations. She translates top leadership vision and customer insight into developing implementable game plans coupled with execution while balancing diverse business needs. She is an excellent change agent and self-motivated professional. We welcome you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So before moving ahead on the exciting discussions, I would like to acquaint the panel members with the flow of the event. So firstly, we will be posing the questions and then the floor will be open for all the panel members to share their thoughts, post which there will be a Q&A session with the students present over here. Now, to begin with, a thought certainly comes to my mind upon seeing all these panel members. The thought says that sharing knowledge is a charity of knowledge that constitutes the way of a beautiful life. With this quote and a hope for fruitful discussion, let us move forward with the session. Now, moving ahead to the first question. So, let's begin, ma'am. While the share of women hired into leadership was 33.3% in 2016, it increased to 36.9% in 2022. We are also aware of eminent personalities such as Kiran Mazumdar, Falguni Nair, Shehnaz Hussain, who have made a significant impact in the corporate world and have paved a way for other women to do the rest. So, dear panel members, we would like to understand your take on diversity and inclusivity and how discussions and decision-making enhances when diversity is introduced in the boardroom. Over to you, ma'am.
Any one of us can go forward?
Yeah.
I'm
So-
sure you know. Anyway,
Yeah. So, I mean, since it was a question to all of us, I thought I'll check. The numbers are great, but they are not. Especially when you look at the representation of women at leadership levels. And, the reason are multifold. And, I always feel that organizations reflect how we work in society. So when you look at societal challenges, around women, they also kind of play out in the organization. And that's really why there is always this question which is posed, and even after several decades of effort by multiple companies, continues to be a challenge even today. The numbers are getting better, which is a great thing, and hopefully they would be at some point equal. But we need to think broader about diversity than the way we understand it today. When I say broader about diversity, it is really looking at different thought processes coming in together, be it the way we look at even potential of people. We have paradigms in our mind, or we have stereotypes in our mind which we have created. So the day we are able to look at diversity in true sense, which is, I am okay with someone who's not like me, is really the day when we won't need this dialogue at all. That day is quite far because, we all have learned stereotype. So we need to unlearn stereotypes. So yes, it is progressing, but I think a lot of effort needs to be made. And it has to be made at grassroots level. When I say grassroots level, when each employee of an organization is able to identify where they are carrying a bias and rectify it in themselves, and not just in the organization, but also outside of the organization, is the day we'll not need this dialogue at all. And that to me is a lot of effort and far away.
Surely, I totally agree with Leena. I just want to add what Leena said is actually very correct. But I know on a contrary side, I also see there is a lot of change which has come in the organizational perspective. Earlier DE&I, which is called diversity, equity, and inclusion, these are drives which were more of a fashion, and it was driven as a fashion in organization. Now it has come in our OKR. It is a key objective of all the leadership. So if I have to hire, say, 15 resources this year, and I'm not putting a 40% as a woman, then it comes in my key objective that why you have not hired. It's imposed with the organization. And when you say diversity, of course, this is a woman drive and you're talking mainly about women, but diversity in different aspects. Might be women, or they are LGBTQ tribe, even they are Black communities, which we have, and also especially able people, right? All these tribes, specifically the organization, huge organization. I belong to JPMorgan, so I will surely talk about myself. So my organization is specifically, I have seen it in my previous organization also. We have drives which try to build a community. When you live in a community, you have all these people, right? And we want to build an organization just a replica of our community. So there is a lot of imposement which comes as a part of rules and guidance for the leaders. Also, when you build such a community, you are putting an environment or a culture where you're driving the people more with passion and care. And they are, we are all social human beings, right? So although we are all driven by money and packages and other things, we do need care, nurture, some motivation. And of course, if you replicate what we have in community directly in our organization, that is what the diversity is. And we have a lot of supports which the organization is giving. And it's very easy for the leaders for now, because you already have a guideline set up, and we generally align to what the guidelines has been provided.
So I can add, since I sit on the board of GE India Industrial, I can add to what Leena and Supriya said. My thoughts are aligned with theirs, which is, and so if I want to add to what they said, we think of it just as institution building. And you were talking specifically about boards. It's the same as like Supriya mentioned and Leena mentioned, just like how you build that across the company. So you have the fundamentals of it, of a home. If you think of it like a house, is that of culture, where you prioritize culture, which proactively seeks to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. At the top of your house is the vision that you have for them. What is it that you want to accomplish by creating that ecosystem? And the pillars are multifold depending on the organizations and depending on, the kind of board it is. And some of the pillars that I can talk about in our board are, the first one is to be able to mentor and build your talent pool who are board worthy, right? At the end of the day, they will have to stand on par with the other board directors. And so for many years, we have spent time across leadership, identifying talent who have the potential for it. Two things which are important. One is the value prop that they bring, which is all the academics and everything. But the second one is also who they are as a person and what is the value creation they will bring to a board. And that's important. That's what the leadership focuses when they will build, when they mentor and they coach you. That's one part. The second one is to be able to, as a board, empower them. And so, for example, I actually have oversight over tax. Give those subcommittees power. You have women there heading it, and then, make sure that they have the ability to run those subcommittees as it is. And then you can have multiple pillars that actually make sure that, you are focused on this whole vision of building diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, I just want to re-say what Sharmila told. She told that, they are hiring two types of people who are technology fit, and then there is a culture fit. Now, it has come in the hiring process also. When you give entrance for many of the organization, before they do any kind of analysis on your technical ability, the first round itself, they ask you for the culture fit. And, the culture fit somehow are driven by these factors, whether you really fit to the culture which the organization is building through or not. Those are also the elimination round, or at least those, those are mainly questionnaires where you have multiple choices, but those multiple choices actually derive a result for what kind of attitude or what kind of person you are. And it do present a one pager for the hiring managers.
And I would probably take even one step back to what all the panelists have mentioned, right? I think what happens is when we are young adults and we are children, we grow up to put people in boxes, like Leena said, right? How can we take off those labels? But, and that's why, even at your level, in colleges, maybe even in schools, it needs to be inherently built in. and not just in OKRs, right? But inherently built in to say, we test the IQ. We have started talking about the EQ. Let's start talking about the DQ, the diversity quotient. How diverse are you as a person since the beginning? How is the schools, the colleges building that into you? As humans, we do tend to flock in groups, if I can say, right? We need to have some connection for those belonging, right? Which is the group we belong to. And I think that's where this diversity quotient should play in and teach everybody from the very beginning the importance of diversity in thought, importance of diversity in culture, and not just in corporate, right? Corporates, I think it's just needs to be in your DNA. There should not be any more discussion around why, but how, and how to like really push it forward and not just be a window dressing. So I agree with everything that all the panelists said, but I also believe that it needs to be one step before anybody enters corporate as well. I don't know, maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, we'll have some tech tools saying, while we are talking about culture fit, let's also do somebody's diversity quotient. So for me, that would be the day I want to see in my corporate life for sure.
For broadening the sense of diversity and how it contributes to the passion, efficiency, and overall growth of the company. Your analogy of a board with a home was self-explanatory, how the culture, decision-making, and empowerment enhances. And yes, we had an interesting addition of diversity quotient in addition to the EQ and IQ, which was very interesting way of looking at the grassroots level adaptation. And we really appreciate your insights, ma'am. Now I request Rahul to please take ahead the session.
Thank you, Gunjan. So let's move to our next question. So today's women leaders handle multifaceted responsibilities, keeping in mind our Indian society, just like a goddess Durga's weapons in her 10 arms. The plate of women in corporate is quite full. We would like to know, ma'am, what are the trade-offs and challenges that women may face in their corporate life to fulfill such responsibilities? And whether is it all worth it? So this is the question for everyone. Yeah.
I like to. Yeah, please go ahead. Please
go ahead. Ritu wants to be the Durga today. Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't mind that, Avtar. But yeah, I'm actually just, question is very interesting, actually, Rahul. Reflecting on when I started my journey, I think we make a lot of sacrifices. If I reflect back on my life and trying to strike a balance between my professional aspirations and my personal goals, coming from a very small town upbringing, I think I've made a lot of sacrifices. I think the question of whether it's worth it or not is very, very subjective because, depending on the circumstances, you take decisions. And I think I have, with my upbringing, I've always believed that the decision that you take, you stand by it. So for me, it has never been something that if I look back, I would regret because you lose some, you gain some with some of the decisions that you take. And I can think of so many things that I would have to let go. I think holidays, family vacations sometimes, a lot of sacrifices you make. And I think it's not just for women. I would give it a different dimension. It's for everybody who wants to make their career, who wants to accomplish something in life, whether it's professional space or personal space. We all need to make sacrifices. You can't cut the cake and have it too many a times. You either cut it or you have it. So I would say it's a part of your journey. My only message over here, because this we are addressing a little over 200 young leaders in the making. I would just say that never look back in life. Don't regret it. You will have to make sacrifices. Just be sure of the decision making. We are blessed to make choices, and stick by your choice and be confident and make sure that you don't look back and start to think alternatively. But yeah, I think sacrifices is the way of life, and here it's not a gender conversation. I think it's irrespective of whether you are a male, female, or you identify yourself as somebody else. Particularly talking about women in the workplace, I think if I look at it from a professional space standpoint, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. And that's also because I think when I started my career, we didn't have such fancy DEI policies and practices in the workplace. I can recollect of carrying my daughter to meetings. I've taken help from my team members so that they can babysit my little one while I'm attending meetings and trying to sort out client issues, etc. I used to have once upon a time a very hectic travel job. But I was happy doing it. I was just thinking, yes, I'm kind of managing it as we move along, and I was never regretting it. But from the fact that, when I look at it from my personal journey, a lot of things you have to let go, which is absolutely fine. And is that something you want to do? I was very clear. I wanted to build my career. I wanted to outshine some of the other team members in the organization. So I was putting that extra effort. But yeah, I think sacrifices for me in a nutshell is a part and parcel of life, whether it's on the personal side or the professional side.
And I'll give it a different twist, Ritu.
Yeah.
I see career as driving a car. Okay. You can't be on fifth gear all the time.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you have to be coming back to fourth, third, even first, neutral, right? And reverse as well. So, you have to do what you have to do, which suits the the situation that you are in. And, the way you drive the car is pretty much your own. You don't look at how the other is driving a car, and then, otherwise you'll have accidents or you'll have all kinds of issues that, may occur. So the car is yours. You know what is the best for your car. So you have to take those decisions of driving in different gears at different stages in your life. That's point one. Second, I would say, very important, which, I wish I had learned earlier, and which is why this is a great platform to share. Whenever you look at your life, whatever stage you are in, just make sure that your mind, your body, your heart, and your soul are all aligned. When you see tension, when you see stress, when you feel anxiety, that's, when one of these or two of these or three of these are not in alignment at all. And, it's the time to reassess, and it's okay to reassess, when we started, a lot of things were not acceptable, in corporate world. Today, there are people switching careers midway. Today, people who are taking breaks or, doing gig work, etc. So there are so many alternatives which are available today. Do what it takes to make sure that your soul is aligned to what you're doing. Because if that is not the case, you will end up being unhappy. Ritu talked about happiness. I think any decision you take, that should be the prime motive. And I can tell you something, money will never buy you happiness. We make this mistake and we have to unlearn this, that money is equal to happiness. It is not, right? You can have the best of phones, you can have the best of cars, but deep down, if you don't have peace in your mind, if you don't have, if you have too much stress and anxiety because of your job or because of, because of other factors in your life, you're not going to be happy. And that then is not worth it. So trade-offs are there. And I think it is gender neutral. Yes, there are challenges, more for women. What I have be a mom, a wife, daughter-in-law, don't be open to challenge the way things have been done in the past, and teach others around you, right? Draw those boundaries early enough so that you are not caught in a situation where you're trying to do everything for everybody. You can't be everything for everybody. You have to make sure that you are being true to yourself first. If you are carrying unhappiness in you, nobody around you in your family will be happy with you. Just remember that fact. So your happiness is in your hands, and your happiness will come when you are able to sort out things which are not making sense to you. For me, I outsource a lot of the work that I do in the house, right? I outsource it shamelessly. And for me, it is generation of employment too. So I'm happy giving employment to people around me. The more, the merrier, right? You have to make sure that you get the right support. But, a lot of people have issues. There was a group, and in fact, this was in GE Sharmila. I was talking to women over there, and I used to head the GE Women's Network at some point, and Sharmila is smiling. And that's when I came across this situation where, this person was struggling. She was part of one of our businesses. And she just held herself responsible to give her baby a bath every day, right? She didn't want to give it to anyone else. She didn't want to trust anybody else. And as a result, she was not able to do that because of the job. So what she started doing it, she would give bath only 3 or 4 days later. Imagine, for a baby who's young, it's unhygienic, right? So even before I could coach her, the other people sitting in the room, they said, "Are you mad? What are you doing? I'll help you with this," right? So, there are people in similar situations around you. And we think, oh, the world has come crashing down on us. Go ask for help, guys, when you need help. And this is for men also. It's okay to ask for help. It is, you're humans. Others are also humans. Come to the organization like a human, not like a robot or a machine who's supposed to be perfect. If you're going to carry that burden, I'm telling you, you'll have a tough time. So, these are some messages I would say. Trade-offs are there. Make a choice which works for you, and make sure you ask for help, and make sure that you outsource what you can, what is not core to your happiness, whatever it is. If it means you leave a job because it's not core to your happiness, that's also fine. Don't judge yourself for that. Okay. Make sure that, that becomes the equation. And those would be the tips I would leave with all of you.
Let me actually spin it on the other side, Leena. For a very long time, this has never been a question asked to men. What's the trade-off? Are you guilty about leaving your child at home? Are you guilty about taking care of your, aging parents and then be able to work? Like, that has never been a question for men. Why? Because they do exactly what Leena said. They outsource it to their wives, to their mothers. So why can't we do that, right? And we need to find those ways, right? And also very, very important that it is your personal journey. And I so relate to it, Leena, because I chose to be a mother a little later in life. And now I have a 1.5-year toddler. And, it's so hard to run after him all day. And I take all the help that's needed, and it's still not enough, right? It takes a village to raise a child for sure. But I think that's very, very helpful because if you don't have that network, whether it is just someone like, Leena or Sharmila, who's telling you what to do, being a new mom or being, a young leader or any other stage of your life or career that you are in, it's very difficult. You would have heard about the old boys club. What is it really? It is a club of or a group of guys who hang out together, who talk to each other, give each other advice. We need to do more of that as women. And I've noticed, and I don't know if you all agree, but a lot of time, when women get married, the expectation is that they will focus on the house, and slowly, the friends start getting disconnected. So Saturday evening, you have men who have a group, they'll go out, they'll have a break from what they're doing. A lot of women don't do that. They want to spend more time with the child, more time looking after the house. So I completely agree with what Leena said. And that is a major reason why this question never comes up for men, I would say. And so I would even, say once it comes to you, pass it on to your male colleagues also, pass it on to your husbands also. They're also changing, by the way, right? If I talk about myself, changing nappies is not something I do at all. It's my husband's job. So outsource it, even if it is to your husband, even if it is to your colleagues. I think like Ritu said, taking help from your colleagues as well. I remember going to my mom's, she used to work in a bank, and I used to be there, and, we would hang out with her colleagues, which if I look back is odd, like hanging out with adults. But it was fun at that point of time. You would get special attention because you are a kid. So just use all the help you can. And remember that careers are not built in an year or in a day. It's not about one job. I think most of us in this room are 20 years at least, or 18, 20 years. And so keep that in mind and just make sure you write your own story, or like Leena said, drive your own car the way it fits you. Ask for help, but also be that anchor which gives help to other women as well. It's very important that women support other women, women sponsor other women, women, mentor other women and coach about how you deal with these situations, different situations. And I know we were talking about diversity, when I got married, and it might be shocking for some of the leaders here, I actually overheard someone say, she was a great employee, she's getting married, which means she'll be 50% useful. Exactly the words, useful, not even productive. And then when, soon she'll have a baby, and then she'll be 100% useless. I was like, that just gave me that grit saying, let me prove it to you, right? And what happens is that sometimes we put that pressure on ourselves also to prove कि अब तो मैं करके दिखाऊंगी, right? I think that's also something we need to steer away from. Like it's our car, there is no pressure, there is no race that we have to win driving that car. So I thought that is also very important. Don't put that pressure on yourself, don't get into that imposter syndrome, and just I really love the analogy, Leena, all four aligning. It's very, very important. If your career gives you happiness, learn from men how not to be guilty about outsourcing that work to someone else, right? If it's a phase where you want to focus more on your child, on your marriage, on your house, on aging parents, and unfortunately or fortunately, whatever you want to say, women are the primary caretakers, just naturally more kind and empathetic, I think. But if that is the case, call for help, but also shed that guilt, right? You're doing what you really like, what you're doing, what you really love. Shed that guilt. Don't have that guilt. It's also takes a lot of hard work to learn not to be guilty. And I can say that because I try to do that every day. But I thought that was important to bring about as a spin to what Leena mentioned.
I just want to add one thing which Divya told. Divya and Leena, actually you explained so nicely. Just one thing that, they talked about building a support system around us. You are at that phase of life where I should say this, marry the right man. When you marry a right man, 90% of your life will be sorted. Or it's not only for women, for the men also. Marry the right spouse, I should say. 90% of your life will be sorted, and you will have the proper ecosystem around you to support you.
So Supriya, I think
all the men and the boys in the group, be that man that everybody wants to marry.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So there are two
I think
things.
very differently. I don't think marriage is the end of the road at all. Sorry, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, Supriya, I think very differently. From our generation to the new generation, I think marriage is not the destination in one's life. And I think it's about the choices you make. But there's a very nice book, if people want to read. It's written by Apurva Purohit saying, "Lady, you are not a man." It's a very beautiful book to read. And it actually talks about how you can creatively outsource many of the messages that came from Leena, Supriya, and Divkiran. I think a lot of those messages are in the book. I'm sure you guys will enjoy reading it.
If I can just go back to Durga,
Yeah.
I will say that, like Parvati, who has very different avatars for different, reasons, you have to be like that as well. Sometimes you will be a nurturer, sometimes you will be this mode that I have to just slay it, right? That's Durga. So, be open to shift gears as it suits your life at that point. If you're always in one energy, always going to, your mind, body, soul, heart will not be in alignment. So aligning to those 4 elements, be in different energies of Parvati avatars, which includes Durga. Okay. So
ma'am, there are 2 things that we understand better. That is, first, stories, and second, analogies. And it was a perfectly melded discussion here. So we really thank you for sharing your experience with us. It really helped us to understand the different groups that, different grounds that one needs to trade upon in order to fit in different roles and responsibilities. The only way to learn at that time is to learn on the job and communicating our ideas at the right time and having the confidence to put it through the creating and space. So we really learned a lot from this discussion, and we would like to move to the next question now. So women currently hold only 26.7% of tech-related jobs. And on the contrary to our expectations, the percentage of women in all the tech-related careers has actually decreased over the last 2 years. So the question is, if you may shed some light on what may be the reasons behind this recede and what we can do to promote women in the area of technology. Open to the panel.
See, going to the reasons, first of all, it starts from the education system itself. There are different streams in which we do the education, but specifically talking about the STEM subjects. If you see the percentage of women in STEM subjects versus any other subjects, we are already less there. When it comes to corporate, it's also about the biological cycle we have. The moment when you step in your career and you have to really progress in your career, you get married. And when you have, of course, Ritu will contradict, but then I think most of the Indian women go through this. When you are having your kid, right, that is a period when you have to step in your leadership. And as soon as your child enter in your teen, which is the age I am now, my son going in a teen, they need a lot of, time and energy from you. Then you are actually stepping in your senior leadership. So actually your biological clock or the social clock is not in sync with the career clock at all. And it happens with men also, but women undergo a lot of changes with all these features, also with the emotional factors and other things. Also, when it comes to women, right, we are always in a self-doubt. Although it is a common saying that when men ask for promotion, it is based on their potential, and when women ask, it is mainly on the promotions, on their, whether they are really prepared for it or not. So we are always in a self-doubt whether we are ready for the next. And that's why women, we grow horizontally. We are happy to grow horizontally rather than growing vertically. We generally never aim also sometimes to grow vertically. Now, having said all these might be the factors, but there are a lot of support which has been provided. I will like to, because from a technology point of view, you have asked, there are a lot of support with the government of India now have started. Ministry of Electronics and IT, if you see, there is a Nari Shakti, NASCOM driven feature, which is specially enabled for the women empowerment. And especially for the digital technologies, there are a lot of courses which are either made free or they are subsidized. Also, bigger organizations like Google, Amazon, JPMorgan, all these bigger organizations, they have their own student development club. You can be a part of it. You can just fill a form. They have a Google form, which you fill a form for it, and you be a part of this development club. And then you start contributing. You might be a student, but then you're contributing for a bigger cause and you are part of a bigger community as such. Also, specifically again from the JPMorgan perspective, earlier, there was a mixed hiring where most of the hiring which were happening at the student level, they were mainly either campus or, there were no proper platform on which the student can go and apply. Now with the digitalization which has come across, many of the platforms, they have segregated their job roles into the experience and the students. So the students hiring has been very much separated, and their criteria has also been separated. Specifically for us, we have interns who join us for 6 to 8 months, and we rotate the interns in 3 divisions like data and project management and a domain expertise and all. And then we finally either make them permanent or they leave after internship. So there are a lot of effort from that perspective also. So what I mean to say that from the infrastructure point of view, we have a lot of support. But from an individual, whenever it comes to women, or you are talking about tech jobs, so it is not only women, but I think it is a sole responsibility which each person has to carry. And as an individual, how capable I am to grasp what support has been provided to me. I think the first and the foremost thing is about the self-awareness, how aware I am that what is provided to me. Am I aware that what kind of support I am getting? Am I aware of what kind of conferences, what kind of summit has been, many a time we don't ask. That is another hesitations which women go through. We never ask for help. We are too hesitant to ask to help. I think it is very important that we go ahead and ask for help, and at least be aware of what the help has been provided to us, so that we can utilize it properly. And second most important thing from an individual perspective, which I feel, is self-branding. We are very hesitant to talk about, even if most of the women, we do that. If we have to talk about ourselves, right, we say we, or my team has done this, or we have done this. We will never say I. It is very seldom you will see here, I have done this, So the self-branding, if you are really having potential, I should say that you go and brag for it if you have really, really correct potentials for that. And self-branding, it comes as a package, it comes in your LinkedIn profile. I saw most of you have a very nice LinkedIn profile. I got some requests and I was very happy to see that. But when you talk about self-branding, it is in your LinkedIn profile, it is in your GitHub profile, mainly from the technology perspective. It is in your resume, what kind of resume you are hosting, whether it is, it is apt for the job selection, because nowadays job selection is not manual. There is an AI tool which is sitting and they already filter out your resume if they are not matching the keywords. So is your resume ready to be presented for the right technology which is required in the market? And also, there are a lot of community help which help to motivate, like I am remarkable and there are other one. So be a part of it to be constantly motivated and leverage the support which is provided all around us to make the best use of it.
So this time, maybe Supriya, I'll partially contradict you, not like fully. I agree with most of what you said, but I think there are few underlying reasons to that. One, the 9-to-5 jobs were never defined for women. They were defined for men. You can't go to work at 9 if you have to drop your child at school and then go to work, right? So that's a major reasons. We all need to, as corporates, rewrite those job descriptions, whether it is skill-based economy, whether it is based on DEI learnings that we get. I think that's very important. I think the second major reason that we do not have a lot of women in STEM, especially progressing to the leadership, is because we do not bring up our women, our girls, to be courageous and to be brave. I was watching this documentary and, some studies were also done, but it was a very good parallel that was a very good parallel drawn to how women or girls are asked. Boys will climb up the bar, they'll go to the park, they'll jump from top of the chair, right? And we're okay, fine, do that. Just be careful, don't hurt yourself. Sometimes not even that. Women or young girls are asked to sit pretty, don't talk too loud, sit in a certain way and all of that. And that is enforced across the life, right? And so there was a study done by HP, I think, and they looked at the resume applications. Men would apply even if they were a 60% fit. Women would not apply unless they are 100% fit. That's a drastic gap. So that courage is where this gap comes from. we need to learn to take risks. We need to teach our girls to take risks so you can, expand your wings and just fly and take off. We are shy, we are hesitant, like you said, Supriya, and this is the reason we need to really teach our girls to be courageous. And that the way it reflects is, by the way, there's a group called Girls Who Code, I think largely run in US. They also looked at why girls are not producing a code output along with Harvard. I think it was Harvard or Stanford. In a class, they looked at, how girls are approaching writing a code. And, uh, not all codes were successful, but when you go and look at the screen, the boys would come, they will have some sort of code. It doesn't always work. And the girls would just have a blank screen, right? And unless you really understand it, what the professor did was they kind of did undo. And they saw that they had written the code at least a number of times, but they came up and said, something is wrong with me. The boys came up and said, something is wrong with my code. Right? This whole need to be a perfectionist, that if I do not do a perfect job, there's something wrong with me. Men don't have that because, they are asked to take risk. If you're wrong, so what? Try again. We need to teach that to our girls. We need to teach that to ourselves. So I think that is extremely important for us to go forward and do research in STEM and, push women forward to take risks. To me, it is important even as you grow in your career, because if we do not apply, we are not going to be considered, for sure. And again, adding another perspective, I know we talked about DEI early on in the call on this, panel. The efforts need to definitely be increased a lot, specifically in sectors which are male dominant, like STEM or technology. You talked about GitHub, Supriya, and that's where that thought came across. GitHub did a study that if you do not put the gender or anything which indicates a gender, could be a name also, in the code, the rating of the code that women wrote was 75%. The moment you put the name out there and indicated that it's a woman who wrote, the code, it came down to 25%. That says a lot about the mindset that we have in the corporates as well, right? So that's where the efforts on DEI to break that stereotype that women cannot be in STEM or women cannot code or women cannot be in technology needs to be broken. And to all the young girls here and the young boys as well, young leaders here, as it's very important, especially for girls, go out there, break that stereotype, because the more role models we have, more of that stereotype will be broken. And for all the young boys that we have, think every time you judge or you are in a position where you have to pick someone or judge someone, think of all the great projects you did in college. Think of all the great colleagues you have here and what they are doing in their domain. So I think we need to have those more role models, and I think your generation is the next one to push it even further.
And Divkiran, I will just want to add, well, the situation is not all that grim. I can talk for Boeing, and I'm sure all of you all will have your own organizational metrics, but I can talk for Boeing. In the year 2022, and this has been a growing trend, we invested a little over $50 million, and we had a little over 320 grants for STEM and other development programs to bring in more STEM and diversity in STEM education, with adding girls and into the whole journey. So I think organizations also recognize, because when I started my career, I think diversity, somebody mentioned earlier, it was like a fad, it was like a fashion thing to have and talk about it in organizations. But today I believe it's truly an integral part and a way of life for many of the corporations and organizations. And quite a few of them are actually focusing on making sure how can you, enhance the STEM education, bring in more diversity, and make it not a one gender situation, but have a more diverse workforce who's coming in and developing careers as far as STEM education is concerned.
And so if I can add and expand the definition of tech and not relate it only to big tech, at GE, where we have manufacturing and R&D all related to advanced infra technology, most of our manufacturing facilities, and we have about 15 of them in country, have about at least a third of their workforce, which is women, and we're counting. There are some assembly lines or bays, as we call it, and some of them are very manual, for example, wind turbine blades. Those bays are run exclusively by women. They have leadership roles in the shop floor, as we call it, running those bays and assembly lines. And that's true also of our R&D center. Some of our labs are women driven. And I won't restrict it just to women. I mean, I believe the gender lines merge today. And so if you look at diversity, I mean, I have recently gone beyond just having women as interns or whoever come to in my team, and much broader. I've made sure that the definition is far broader even for me as I train people. And so therefore, I think the positive side to it is I think corporations are focused and committed to only growing women in tech or diverse population in tech.
Yeah, so Sharmila, I'll give another example. And this is, if I just talk about the Boeing products, we have a huge supplier base, and we are driving diversity and inclusion all the way up to our supplier bases as well. In fact, just last week, I was at Pune, and I was so proud to be there because for one of our platforms, the wire harness work that is done, which means you're sending signals through and through the aircraft and the various platforms that we have, the crew was 100% women crew. There were 120 women who have been working on our wire harness assemblies for the products that are the future of flying, if I may say. And it was so inspiring and so beautiful to see that how women have come together and they stretched themselves during the pandemic, and they did not look at the shift timings. Often we underestimate the 9 to 5 quotas. They have to go back and look after their family chores as well. But here women actually stayed back and worked double shifts just to ensure that they were able to meet the requirements of Boeing. And it was really, really a very, very heartwarming experience for me. So I think absolutely you're right. There's lots happening as far as just trying to make sure that diversity, the gender diversity, is beyond the lines of men in the workplace.
I would actually agree, because one of the reasons I am still being able to do what I want to do with my career is also because my company supports that. So at Seagate, it's a very flexible, time. So because the company takes care of allowing me to make my schedule the way I want and work it around to be able to take care of my child, is why, like you said, Ritu, it makes me that passionate about doing something more for the company. And so going back to what Leena and Sharmila said early on, right, that engagement and that, to the point that, money cannot buy everything. And I think that goes for the corporations also. They can't pay someone and buy their loyalty and engagement. So that's their culture piece, the fact that, they're investing more in supporting women, and not just women, every other kind of diversity, including, supplier diversity that you talked about. That does make a lot of difference to retaining that diverse talent and engaging that diverse talent as well.
So I would say many a times also, Divkiran, just to build upon what you're saying, a lot of the times our minds are our own barriers, right? There is so much more available out there. And I think I would, thank the pandemic, because the pandemic really opened up the number of conversations that we can do, the diverse group of people that you can reach out to when you need help or you need any kind of guidance. At Boeing, we have something called as business resource groups. And these are different types of resource groups just to champion the cause of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belongingness in the workplace. There are a lot of external technical affiliations, I'm sure a lot of the large organizations do, in order to make sure that the skill sets are being developed, they're getting that coaching and their mentoring to develop their leadership skills. Often I was asked very early on in my career that have women broken the glass ceiling? I would say yes, because it's always relative to from where you started to where you are today, the environment that you were in to where you are today, for the kind of environment you are building for diversity and inclusion in the workplace. I think the glass ceiling in my mind is broken. And the only thing I would like to tell all those young leaders on this webinar is to, don't make your mind a barrier. Be open. I think you have to first overcome the challenge of your own mind in terms of being able to, further yourself in your professional space.
Got it.
Yeah, there is a common term which is called anti-fragile. There is a book also by Nassim Taleb, which says that, especially for the boxes which are very delicate, right? We've labeled this as handle with care, it is fragile, right? It goes with women also. We have to break that and we have to say that, come mishandle, we are anti-fragile. You have to prepare for that, because many a time, being a woman, you have to perform much better than what the role demands. Might be, just because you have to prove to a larger audience. So be anti-fragile.
I disagree to that, Supriya, and I don't think we need to prove to anyone. Going to the point that I made earlier, you are in your own car, you're driving your own car, and your happiness is your definition of happiness. And sometimes in pursuit of showing others what we are about, we lose ourselves. If you lose yourself, you will not attain what you want to attain. So I would be very mindful of being driven by external pressures and circumstances to take decisions which make sense for you. And we don't have to prove. You are good, believe in that. You are great, believe in that. And you're doing the best that you can. There's nothing to prove. The proving is to yourself, not to the world.
It is not to prove always, Leena, but sometimes, you are being a woman, it's always easy to take a back seat. You are not prepared because, you are going through a difficult phase and you take a back seat. Okay, I will not do it. Breaking that cocoon of coming out from your comfort zone and saying that I can do this.
Yes.
That is what being anti-fragile.
Absolutely. That I agree with, but I'm just saying that, we have impressionable young minds. So we need to make sure that we are giving the right message there. I understand where you're coming from. Absolutely now. So, I would rephrase it saying that, and this, you had also spoken, Ritu, that, our mind is our worst enemy. So don't let your mind tell you that you can't do it. If you have the capability, if you have the skill set, you have the willpower, do it. Don't second guess yourself. And when we say it that way, Supriya, then what you're saying absolutely makes sense. And Ritu had already talked about it as well.
Yep. It was a great discussion. So in this discussion, we got to see a bird's eye view of why this trend took place in the first place. So from grassroots level issues like education to challenges women face during their journey. We also got a glance of the different initiatives corporates are taking to accelerate the growth. 2 pointers that we resonate with. First, being proactive, asking questions, and emphasizing on the self-branding. An idea was ignited by ma'am, the idea of being courageous and the risk-taking abilities of women should be something that we should focus on. The discussion was thought-provoking. We will definitely use them in our peer discussions because we believe that is the phase where we learn a lot. So thanks a lot for the discussion. Now I request Nimisha to take over the discussion further.
Thank you so much, Rahul. The discussion until here has been so fruitful, and me being a female myself was able to relate to many points. Having a working mother, I have seen her go through many such challenges, trade-offs, and how she has been through all of this. Coming to our next question, I would like to ask our panelists. It's been said that be a woman who fixes another woman's crown without telling the world that it was crooked. A woman has the power to empower other women. The question to you all I'm placing is, are there any measures or steps which are being particularly undertaken by women leaders from different industries to empower other women in an organization to help them climb up the corporate ladder? Open to you all, ma'am.
So hi, Ritu here. And I think there is lots happening. I mentioned this earlier. I think there are a lot of mentoring and sponsorship programs available. I'll keep it very simple. We run a mentoring program here at Boeing, and in my previous organizations as well, I had the opportunity to get mentored from very senior, successful women leaders. So it helped me to learn through their experiences, and I think it's important. I think that's a very, very important factor. Organizations today, I'm very, very certain again, are creating supportive work environments. The kind of policies and practices that are provided for by organizations to enable gender equity and diversity is huge. Just look at it. The maternity leave from 3 months when I was in a family way, don't shy away from extending that maternity leave just because they understand that that's a very, very crucial time for the mother and child to stay together. There are flexible workplace policies. It's no longer you have to badge in at 9 and only leave at 5 p.m. in the evening. Also, a lot of professional development opportunities are being provided to women in the workplace just to ensure that they're able to learn, they're able to excel, they're able to identify their blind spots, and to be able to, how can they overcome their blind spots? So I'll keep it short, but in my mind, there are so many things already available. It is about going and reaching out for help. It is about networking within your organization to be able to further yourself. And I'm very happy to say that I've had many male reporting managers, and I've always seen them supporting me. So I'm not one of those who had challenges where male colleagues were trying to pull me down. I would say, blessed and lucky enough to have good male colleagues who always helped and supported me. But I think it's irrespective of women leaders. There are male colleagues also who are advocates and allies when it comes to diversity. And I think there is already lots going on. So just go ahead and reach out. Let your mind not be your barrier to be able to progress.
Ritu, I just want to share something I have noticed. I have seen, in fact, women not being advocates of other women for some reason. And
I agree 200%.
Yes,
it's always the other way around.
Yeah, so and it is actually very sad, and a lot of reflection that I had done on this topic made me think about one. There is so much that you give to get where you are, that you take out that angst on others, and it comes out on women, and I think it's something that most women at senior levels have to be mindful of, because when we see others getting it easy and you reflect on your journey, it may have been harder, so you want to make sure that it's hard for that person as well. That's the only reason I could explain this phenomena that I have witnessed over years of work experience. And and that's why you see a difference in behavior between men and women, especially on this aspect. So yes, I agree, women should be taught also of this issue that I just highlighted, and especially at middle senior levels, when they are in position to influence other people's career choices, be role models instead of trying to be I would say stepmotherly in treatment of women itself. And because there is I think it's human to compare. My mom had it tougher than me when it came, because she was working too. And I know how hard she worked. That doesn't mean that, I have to have the same kind of hardness in my life as she had, right? So when my daughter was born, and, I think she was comparing of what she had to do for me to me. And she told me that I don't have focus on my child, right? She herself told me that, and I'm not even talking about a boss. I'm talking about my own mom out here. And I was like, what happened to her all through her life? She's told me, go for it, go do this, go for the stars. And suddenly she's bringing me down when I really am looking for pearls of wisdom from her. And then I recognize that it is coming from this phenomena that, there is always a comparison. I turned it around. I said, okay, if I'm not paying attention to my child should tell me that, not you. So, I put a NPS score with my child, which, a lot of people know, I was in GE that time. So then my daughter used to give me an NPS score every week. I scored 1, I scored 2, I scored 3. And then I figured what it takes to get to 10. And after 10, it became infinity, 100, 1,000, because, quality of time was the parameter, right? So, I'm giving this example to you, and this can be taken in workplace as well. And I think women at senior levels need to be, and, Sharmila, please do, as a board member, profess about this a lot more to other women who are in senior leadership roles, as well as at middle management roles, to be mindful of this issue that I have, encountered as an observer of this.
So, Leena, to respond, I was hoping, you'll talk about GE Women's Network, just, to give a perspective to the upcoming leaders here, only because, then as they build institutions, it helps them to see how. And your phase, you won't know it only because I've now stayed on still in GE and it was transformational. So if you spend a minute, I think it's useful for the leaders. That's one. The second one is, on a lighter note, I got away a little easier in GE because you were part of Gwen and you were one of the leaders. So I didn't have to face this, what you're saying. But thirdly, most importantly, Ritu and Leena have all spoken about how institutions should be mindful about providing the platform for diverse talent. But I have only one request, that when I go in front of people, is that give as much as you've received. So just as one example, right? USAID runs what's called the South Asia Women in Energy, and I'm a mentor. So give as much as you can. I know, we all have our own constraints that we work on with family and things like that. But what I think it does is, it's Leena said, infinity. It's so helpful to them in that phase. You've sometimes forgotten the phase that you went through, where you've received a lot of this, but give as much as you can is the way I look at it.
It's quality, it's quality, right? And sometimes we don't, when we look at time, and especially when you have so much, you have to play so many roles, time becomes of value. If you are focused and you have focus on quality, you can get so much done. It is unbelievable. We waste a lot of time thinking we are doing something meaningful. And in that quality time, remember always to also keep quality time for yourself. Because if you don't have reflection of what's going on in your life, you'll never be able to give to anyone else as well. So, I'll say quality as well of time that you should pay attention to.
So I wanted to add one more point, Leena, to what you were mentioning earlier. Sometimes women don't support women, and for reasons that we've already mentioned. But I have a message to give. Don't go into that
Your message, the universe doesn't want us to hear, Ritu.
Because you are a
Your message was garbled a bit, you know, the universe is like forcing you not to say.
Okay.
Try again.
Don't play the W card, to keep it simple. Okay. You're not entitled for it. Work your way through it. Build credibility and make sure that when you get a seat on the table, it is meaningful to the organization, right? And you are being heard for what you're saying and not for what you are. I think that's a very, very important aspect. I really want to give that message out because I've seen, you know, women start to play that W card of entitlement, etc. Because I'm a diversity, hire, I should be getting things differently. I think that's the, that's the paradox that we often grapple with as senior leaders. I experienced this many a times in my career.
I would like to add from the technology perspective. Many times when you get asking for the help from the women leaders or from the organizations, there are a lot of hackathons which are being organized. If you want to be a part of these hackathons actually directly pull you through the innovative ideas into the direct projects which is being built up. I'm talking more from a financial perspective. I have spent my 16 years in finance, and many of times when the innovation project, the research projects are open, they open hackathons and they hire people through those hackathons. And nowadays they are very much open to the students. So please follow the organization you wish to be a part of very closely on the social platform. And of course, LinkedIn is a very nice platform. That is one thing. Secondly, from the women perspective, there are a lot of women tech makers group communities which is being built up. Those are organization-wise community, and there are wider communities also. So those communities, the whole purpose is to drive the diversity. If you're part of those community, to be a part of those communities is very simple. You either have to fill up a form which they provide and you be a part of those. For example, just to say, I was yesterday in Google, one of the Google Tech Maker event, and they opened something called Google Ambassador or Google, Google membership. So when you be a part of those drives, you automatically are aware of what is being driven for the woman. Of course, from a technology perspective, there are a lot of drives, but specifically in order to drive the diversity, there are very generous effort which are being done to promote women. So be a part of those community, and it is very easy. Either follow those platforms very regularly on the social media, or be a part of those by filling their form or whatever is possible.
I think I just want to add one thing. When we were talking about mentoring, right? It is so powerful and so important, but it is also on the mentee, right? I have also observed that a lot of time, even young women professionals do not necessarily reach out to more seasoned women professionals, right? I don't know if you guys all saw the video, right, where there was a puzzle given to a whole group saying a father and a son were in a car accident, and when the son was brought to the operation table, the doctor said that I cannot operate because this is my son. And then the audience was asked, what do you think, how is this possible? And almost about 75 to 80% of people were saying it could be, someone who calls this person's son, or, maybe a grandfather. Very few were able to guess that the doctor was a mother. Right? So that's where this whole mindset of the leader is only the successful man in the industry also comes in. So it's also on the mentee, and I'm bringing this out because, we have these young leaders here. So reach out to women leaders, right? You have 5 women leaders sitting here today talking to you. This is a great example of how we all want to champion this cause, and that's why we are all here. So reach out to them, and that goes for all the young male leaders also. We are happy to mentor you all. And of course, you push for that gender diversity, because diversity doesn't mean only one, it has to be both, right? So reach out, think of women in those roles, reach out to them, and I'm sure, some of them will definitely be able to help you out, right? So that's the only thing I wanted to add, because I think everybody covered pretty much everything here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This discussion shed some lights on how we already have all the amenities and supports available. There's just a blind spot that we need to overcome. The women just needs to reach out for the same. Also, we were able to understand how a male's behavior is different from a female's one when it comes about empowering the other person. Women can be a nurturer for the other women and help them go ahead rather than pulling her down. Also, your words, your messages support young leaders were pretty empowering for all of us sitting here today. We need to work hard to achieve our goals, and we do not need to give someone a chance to say that, oh, she got it because she played the W card. And we really hope that we have mentors like you all, and we will definitely reach out to you, ma'am. While talking about this discussion, we were talking about available amenities such as maternity leave. Another such topic is the talk of the town. Getting to our next question, a lot of discussion these days is revolving around the right of women to menstrual leave in India. Supreme Court of India has directed the central government to take the call on this matter. The government, as of now, is trying to evaluate the pros and cons. The question I'm posing here is, you all have significant experience in the corporate world. What do you think of such measures? Are they a privilege or a necessity? The panel is open for discussion.
So, I mean, I think it is a question that needs to be asked to people who will benefit from that. And not, policymakers sometimes want to do this because it's giving a brownie point to the organization. You want to show that you're progressive. There are all kind of wrong reasons because of which people may do this, right? But if women don't, and my question would be, in the organizations where it has been introduced, how many women have actually utilized it, right? How many women feel comfortable utilizing it? And, that's a question one should ask before one, rolls it out in the organization. And if most women want it, go for it. If they don't, then don't. It is for the audience, right? I mean, the audience needs to be asked if they are okay with it or not. So I would say that it's not a question of privilege. I don't think so. There are policies in most organizations when they look at either a sick leave or privilege leave. They are broad enough to cover for days that you would want to stay at home if you need to. If they are not broad enough, make them broader. You don't have to call it out separately like a maternity leave. That's my own personal perspective on it. I'm not in big favor of this leave personally. I would not see myself taking it, as well as an employee. So that's really my own perspective as a leader. And I would say that ask the people who need it. If it is required, then make a broader policy around sick leave, or make a broader policy around privilege leave, and let people avail those. Why do you have to call it out separately? I think it's a marketing gimmick.
I think it'll reinforce. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say that whatever Leena said, I'm totally in line with what Leena is saying. Sometime when you give those privileges, it is also, the blue card, which they say, right? The women play it very differently also. Not all women in those periods need equal kind of attention. So, even if you go by organizational thought that yes, 60% women says that you give it, not all women will be availing it. So yes, instead of calling it out and giving it a separate bracket, give it under the regular bracket where, it can be used for a wider perspective. I totally agree with Leena.
So I think, just to add. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ritu.
No, Ritu, go ahead.
No, I just had a very simple point. I think we touched upon the stereotypes. And doing something like this which I think will just reinforce some of those additional negative stereotypes of why should we have women in the workplace altogether? Because now there's another category of leave being introduced. I love the idea, and I personally think that just broadening the whole concept of maybe sick leave is the right thing to do. And we should go and ask the target audience, how many of us are comfortable having something called as the quote unquote a menstrual leave in our workplaces? I think it's got to do with the audience as well, whether they are comfortable or not. And all those negative stereotypes we've tried to overcome so far, perception of women in the workplace will only go maybe few notches down. So I wouldn't, I'm not a personal fan or in favor of doing something like this at a larger corporation level.
So I sit on a committee which actually drafts policies. Leena, some work that I've taken from you actually, which is, and it's, so the decision making around any of, and I'm actually going to keep it much broader for all you young leaders as you craft and draft policies within institutions that you join, which is that it needs to be data driven, aligned with what both Leena, Ritu and Supriya were saying. What we do is we actually conduct a survey, and I'll give you an example, one which is recently about extended maternity, paternity leave once somebody's had a child. And especially in my R&D center, both the husband and wife would actually be working at different labs. And so we ran a survey to see how many actually have in the past, when we ran a pilot, how many availed of it, how many benefited it qualitatively. What's the feedback that you're getting? And then build it into the whole process of policy making to see, yes. And again, then we are not so specific about just giving the woman an extended period. We actually give the men as well. So it doesn't matter. It's agnostic. It's a fundamental question of where does the value lie? Do people who benefit actually see value? If it does, then you make your decision around it. And that's the same for something like this as well.
I feel like I'm on an absolute opposite side of this. I think it's a necessity. Just like if you want women to come and work for you, you should have a women's loo. It's as simple as that. You will not give an abortion leave, which a lot of companies do now. If unfortunately there is a miscarriage, that leave is not for men. The reason those leaves exist is so that your women are comfortable coming and working. But I also see, and I agree, that one of the biggest reasons it's not being given, and it just started discussing, maybe 10 years down the line, it will not even be a question, right? But there's a lot of taboo around it, which means there's a lot of taboo around women's health. These menstrual cycles can be debilitating for some women that do impact their health. If it was me, I would go around by trusting the women, give that leave, trusting them with taking it when it is needed and when not. Because sick leave, for example, because that came up, it is inequity then, right? If I have to take, say, 3 or 4 of those sick leaves for menstrual days, then I have that many less to take care of another medical situation.
So, in that case, Divkiran, the easier answer would be for women have additional sick leave every year.
Yes.
And it's as simple as that. And there is a logical, biological reason for that. But, just calling, I don't, when you're making this as a separate policy, you are also pushing me to declare that I'm taking this leave, which I'm sure a lot of people are not comfortable, and this is also true in sick leave category. If you have to call in for anxiety or depression, people don't want to report it. Yes. It's not just, but you don't have those categories, right? Yes. You don't have those categories. So why would you have this category as well? So,
but that's where, Leena, that's why I said that I understand that there is a lot of discomfort around it, and maybe it is a little futuristic, but there are organizations who are starting to talk about mental health. There are a lot of organizations in the COVID time and who started a mental health day off. Adobe, for example, is an organization. Every 3 months, there used to be one mental day off. In Seagate also, we have something called no calls Friday. So you can just focus on what you want to do, take that time off if you need, right? So we have to start talking now and not have it as a taboo, because it's a fact. It happens. Anxiety happens, periods happens. So how do we not, kind of make it a thing of shame, let it be out and open, because it's not just about leaves, it's also about health. If it's a taboo, we'll never talk about it. We'll never declare it. How do we start talking about it? Open it up is more my point of view. And that includes mental health, like you said. So, and I really love the whole data-driven approach, right? But at the same time, we have to sometimes be futuristic leaders and think about how things should be in 10, 15 years and start now. So from that perspective, I'm glad this question came up. At least we are talking about it.
Thank you so much, panelists. I think it was a very interesting discussion that we have gone through. We have had very different point of views from all of you. There was some discussion revolving around the negative stereotype and how it should not be in a separate bracket, and that women are strong enough to manage their menstrual cycle in their regular leaves. Whereas some said that it is a necessity and not a privilege, and it should be there to motivate other women to start working. It's not a taboo. We need to create a comfortable space for women to be open about it. I think the discussion was really made many of us to think about it. Now, I would like Rahul to discuss the closing notes of our discussion, and then we can move ahead with the Q&A.
Thank you, Nimisha. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone. We are really honored to hear your words of wisdom. I'm sure that hearing your thoughts and perspectives that you all have gained throughout the years of experience must have helped all the students to understand that when women become a leader, they bring diversity to the table. They provide a unique set of skills, imaginative perspectives, and importantly, structural and cultural differences that drive effective solutions. Now, I believe this is the time for students to be given the opportunity to come up with their own questions for the panelists. So I would like to request Nimisha to take the Q&A session forward.
Thank you, Rahul. So now the portal is open for questions. Students can either raise their hand and post their questions based on the discussion conducted, or they can also put their questions in the chat box. The portal is open. Yes, Ankita, please go ahead and ask your question.
Very good evening to all the panelists. First of all, it was a very, very insightful and fruitful session that we all had and that you all discussed. And some of the issues that were addressed were very, very contemporary and like they were very insightful. So my question is, I believe that that inclusivity would be a success once we will eliminate the use of the word women leaders. We never say like men leaders or the men in the corporate. So how far are we from getting there, where we need not be using a word like women leader at all?
So, okay, great. So I'll take that question. And I think I resonate with that question personally, because this is for me like a dream that one day there will be no women leaders. There will just be leaders in the world. And this is something that I personally, if I say, resonate with very, very closely. I think it's a matter of time. And, we've touched upon a lot of this in terms of where did we start from? We started from where the role of a woman was largely, or a girl child was largely, to look after the family. They didn't even get access to primary education, or I would say foundational education. From there to today, you look at the startup community, you look at any profession, women are in the forefront of most of these professions. I can think of just aerospace alone, the wingspans for a BMW seaplane, right? So I think we've come a long way. it's just about the kind of conversations we will do as we continue with some of the new young leaders coming and joining this fraternity. We all have to together champion this change. And I'm very positive that today or tomorrow, there will be no women leaders, but just leaders alone.
Thank you so much, Ritu ma'am. That was a very insightful answer. We have another question in chat box from Soumya Kansi. She's asking, the question is posed to Ritu ma'am and Sharmila ma'am. The question is, being part of young leadership for a prestigious essential service and being on the shop floor throughout when the world has shifted to working from home, there was a lot of anxiety driven by uncertainty that was going around. This also might have hindered our productivity at times. So how do organizations like GE and Boeing do away with this fact during such unforeseen situations, especially for young women?
So, Sharmila,
Go ahead, Ritu, and then I'll
go first. Okay. So you'll have a much more broader view on this, but see, hybrid working, I think, is a reality. To what we listen to our employees on ground, a lot of it has got to do with the persona of the work or your SOW that you deliver. So we do have women on the shop floor. They don't have a choice. I don't think hybrid works for them. When you are building something with your hands, you need to be present in the shop floor to be able to do that work. But there is a R&D side, there is a technology side where because of your SOW, you have the flexibility to be able to work in a hybrid work environment where you might not be expected to be in the workplace, all through the week. But from my perspective, we are all human beings. We're not artificial intelligence, while that's the order of the day in the tech world. We come with emotions to the workplace. We bring our relationships to the workplace. And I think in a hybrid environment, it's very, very difficult to probably get to that level of, collaboration and the corroboration that you would like to have with your colleagues, whether your senior leaders, whether your junior team members. So I think personally, I go to office 5 days a week. I love my job. And I think hybrid is just another way of giving. It is gender agnostic in my mind. Whether it was the shop floor during the pandemic, whether it has got to do with engineering, technology work, the kind of patents that we were filing, I think productivity was impacted all through, irrespective of whether you are a male gender or you are associate yourself differently. We are coming back, and I'm extremely positive. We have almost 50% of the workforce back into our workspaces. And I would say employees, team members acknowledge the power of being together under the same roof. It could be just maybe having a cup of tea together. It could be just brainstorming or doing some kind of a conversation together. But I think the fact that we are social beings, getting together is part of our second nature. I don't think it's something that we can do away with. But productivity for me, particularly, I did not see it specific to gender, where it was heavily impacted. It was impacted all through, and industry is coming back. In my mind, we are getting back. Between the shop floor and the engineering workforce, by the privilege of your SOW, you might be able to explore a hybrid work environment. But organizations are not creating barriers in the way they look at the workforce and the way they look at the whole hybrid work culture. Different organizations are trying to do things differently. But at Boeing, I can say that we have tried to bring in equity. By the way, we've enabled the whole hybrid work environment by employees being able to identify their own work personas and then tying it back with the kind of work behavior we expect from them. We are not 100% there, but I would say it's never too late. We will get there shortly.
So at GE, the specific question relating to shop floor. So health and safety is a priority at GE. During COVID, of course, you just had to plan and work around this very differently than you did for the others who didn't have to be at the workplace. And so all of what Ritu said about hybrid was enabled for the rest of us. But for the shop floor, let me tell you, those were trying times because we were also experimenting for the first time. So for example, when they work on a shift, we would have 3 teams, A, B, C, rotate them so that if team A came into first shift, and they would be tested very regularly. And if somebody was found positive, all of team A would be then quarantined, and only team B and team C would come in. And so what the employees understood by that was also that we had their health as a priority for us. I mean, yes, in the manufacturing world, what happens is you can't work, you don't have the option of, you can't phone in. But the fact that the company had their health as a priority, I think gave them comfort. To begin with, the uncertainty was there, and nobody could take that away from that situation. The second one is we also prioritize. So for example, GE Healthcare, we prioritized vaccinations for not just all of our manufacturing facility shop floor people, but we also prioritized for those in healthcare business who used to go to hospitals and things like that. So, and the rest of the companies, the rest of the company was behind it, saying they are our strength, GE Healthcare. And so therefore, please go ahead and see what you can do for them. And I think that gives you, that solidarity is what I think helps you get through phases like COVID. I don't know if it answers your question. Point is, I mean, hybrid is not a possibility for manufacturing. What I think you can do is establish programs, establish measures that put those employees at the heart of policy making and decision making.
And I'd also like to add, Sharmila, people who are on the shop floor, I think for the passion that they bring while doing all that fabrication work, I don't think they're looking at hybrid as being part of their work life. And company supports with many more other policies of making sure that their health and their safety is taken care of. But I think with the passion that I have seen that they come to the work floor, they know that if they're not there, if they don't use their hands and their whole presence, they will not be able to make a difference. They will not be able to contribute to the vision of that company. So I think the mindset of being hybrid on the shop floor is really not there, at least to what I've experienced with our suppliers, where we do a lot of fabrication work, and even on our own factories, where we build our planes.
So that's very right, Ritu, because, one would have typically thought that after COVID, people would sort of, in the shop floor, they would rest and reflect if this is where I want to be, because, the others have an option of having a hybrid, whereas I don't. And you would expect attrition at that level, right? And that hasn't happened really. I mean, there are the usual attrition rates, but nothing higher. So I think their own perspectives of how they'd like their vision for their careers, I think are different from those who are looking at hybrid, and good for them, right? Kudos to whatever that they are planning for themselves. The second thing is, and here I want to call out the GE Healthcare folks, because they knew they were at the heart of this whole COVID, whether it was producing, CT, X-ray, whatever. They actually wanted to come and run these 3 shifts. So what we had to do was to ensure, your food lines, right, in the cafeteria are very careful. So we actually had to spend a lot more time just planning about how to organize yourselves around that, the bus drops and pickups, and, should one team stay somewhere closer to some homestay or something like that, or, take a OYO kind of a whole hotel and have them stay there so that they don't impact their families, because they were driven to run the 3 shifts. So the whole thing evolved over time. I don't think we got it right the first time. And we didn't get it. I mean, the COVID-1, I think, was very difficult. By COVID-2, I think we had our act together and things like that. But the ones that I want to absolutely call out are actually the shop floor employees.
So, did we lose Sharmila? or?
No, Leena, I wanted you to provide your.
Yeah, so, why just talk about shop floors? You think of airlines that were running, you think of hotels that were running during that time, or even the labs that were testing, I was with Tata Group that time, and I was part of the central committee that looked at COVID response across the country, for employees. So I would say that, it is an assumption that we make that everybody wants to be in hybrid, and that's not true. That's an assumption that we should discard in our heads. Just like everything, the choice needs to be given to employee on what he or she wants. Some professions by nature will not have that choice. A sales guy can't be hybrid. What is hybrid in a sales organization could be that instead of coming to office, which was perhaps mandated earlier on, you are going straight to field and you're coming back straight to home, after your field work is done. So flexibility, replacing hybrid thinking is a much more practical way of looking at, jobs. And I would say that, don't have that assumption that I need this, I want this flexibility, therefore everybody around me needs that flexibility, is itself wrong. Given a choice, many people would, I went to office every day, even when we had, we had rosters, but I was in office. That's how wired I am, right? So it is my choice, and that choice could be different. There was someone in my team who didn't want to come in at all. So it's okay. I understood that. So, there's no hybrid there. So I think we need to, just be aware of painting everything with the same brush when we are looking at these kind of matters.
So, Soumya, I know that question wasn't for me, but I'll step in because Seagate manufactures hard disks. And 80% of our workforce in the manufacturing specialists, as we call them, is women, right? And so that was a different kind of challenge for us as well. And like Leena said, that flexibility and the choice was so much more powerful at that point of time, because we also had that shift challenges, 50% people will come, 50% will not come. What's the shift? What the roster looks like? And then there was at a point of time, especially in China, that if there was a lockdown, you couldn't even physically travel. You have to be where you are. And this brings me back to the earlier point that, the panelists also talked about, that engagement, that choice that you're giving the employees, how you're treating them throughout and not just in COVID. That culture was so much more important because these women stayed in the factory during that shutdown and kept the supply chain going. And that's why we like to call them the heart of our business, because while some of us did have the privilege to choose, they did not. And they are the ones who kept the business running. They are the ones who were actually making money for everybody. So it's extremely important to go back to culture and have that culture throughout and not think of it only in times of uncertainty. So for me, that is a differentiator. How are you treating them when there is no uncertainty?
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure you have answered the question in a very, very diverse manner and given some really good points on the same. I think due to paucity of time, we won't be able to take any more questions, but we will make sure to forward all the remaining queries of the students on the respective email IDs of our panelists. Now, I would like to hand over to Gunjan to take forward and give closing notes for the entire session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nimisha. So now we would like to formally end the session with a vote of thanks. We, the Corporate Relations Committee of IIM Kashipur, would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our panelists for taking out their time and gracing us with their presence in this event, and yes, making it a resounding success. We are grateful for your contribution to the event, and yes, we'll certainly take many insights from it. As a humble token of appreciation, we would like to present you with a certificate acknowledging the planting of a tree through our partner Grow Trees. So this is the PPT, and as we speak, these certificates are being shared to you over email. We hope the tree signifies the values that our industry leaders have towards the growth of our country. And now, we thank you all once again, and we hope to continue our association in future as well. Thank you very much, ma'am.
That's such a wonderful thing. I'm very happy to know about the tree on our behalf. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being so many, 200 plus students working on a Sunday to listen to us. We are really grateful. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for bringing us together, right? Because it's really important for us to see what questions you have, interact with you, and also with each other. We don't always get a chance to do that. And I'm so thankful, I learned a lot myself during this session. So I was a student and a learner along with you all today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think Ritu ma'am dropped off due to network issues. So,
I'm there.
Okay, you're there.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm there. And I just wanted to echo what everybody said. In fact, this was a great example of bringing us together, the power of women that we often refer to. So thank you so much. I am Kashipur, and blessed to be here. Thank you for the lovely tree that you've planted, and looking forward to more collaborative environments where we can contribute to our experience. Thank you once again.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I enjoyed it as much as everyone did.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
All the very best to everyone.